Last year, I took a 6-month break from my marketing agency and spent all of that time writing a book. Now, the reason I wrote this book and the reason I took a break from my marketing agency is probably not what you're expecting. Now, I'm back working in my marketing agency. I'm busier than ever before. And best of all, my book became the #1 bestseller in the law and media category, which is the exact industry that all of my clients are in. Off the back of my best-selling book, I've also been able to build a community of over 1,000 law firm owners across the world. That's 1,000 of my ideal prospects, all within one community, consuming my education, courses, licensing my systems, whether they're free or paid, and engaging with each other. Now, let me place you in my shoes all the way back when I made this life-changing decision. You see, I was stuck in a rut with my agency. I was getting plenty of booked calls through running paid advertising. I had a fantastic funnel, but my appointment show-up rates and close rates were absolutely nowhere near the industry standard. I just couldn't understand why I was struggling so much to actually close and convert clients, especially on call. When I would watch all these sales gurus talk about how they close clients on call, I almost stopped believing that it was even possible. There was just so much friction between me and the prospect. And it was probably because they'd had so many negative experiences in the past with similar agencies that never delivered them results. So despite our agency's unique selling points and despite my confidence or our salespeople's confidence, we were still struggling to close these clients into long-term retainers. Now, after being stuck in this rut for a very long time, I came across a piece of content that changed my life. A very famous Australian entrepreneur who goes by the name Daniel Priestley wrote a book called Key Person of Influence, and I saw a video of him speaking on stage about this book. The title of the book really grabbed my attention because when I thought about it, I was trying to be a key person of influence in my industry. Now, the things that I learned from this book absolutely changed the way I did business forever. Now, the 3 key principles that I got from this book that changed everything are exactly what I'm going to share with you today. The first was this idea of publishing. In the book, Daniel Priestley talks about putting your ideas out there for people to see, doing this in written form or doing it in video form. And one really important point here is to give your unique takes on industry problems, trends, and solutions. What I've come to notice is the more unique your take is, the more you're going to resonate with people that have been thinking the exact same thing. It's so crazy because the beliefs that we hold that we think are contrarian are often held by so many other people. And it's almost like a race of the first person to voice that and publish it will ultimately benefit the most and capture the audience of everyone else who agreed with that perspective in the first place. So let me tell you how I implemented this in practice. Now, I had a lot of opinions about why law firms suck at generating clients online. They have so many limiting beliefs around advertising. They have so many limiting beliefs around sales. They also absolutely hate to take risks and disrupt the status quo. These were thoughts that I'd had for such a long time, and for some strange reason, I was afraid of actually voicing them and making posts about how I felt. When I started emailing my database of law firm owners and sharing these opinions, I realized that a lot of law firm owners had actually been quite introspective about this exact same perspective and were actually craving to be pulled out of their comfort zone. So I started emailing this list more and more and more. This was an absolute game changer for me and something that I highly recommend that you start doing if you haven't already in your online consulting business. Now, the second key point that I implemented from this book, and probably the most important one, was this idea of creating a product from your IP. Now, many of you may be aware of what lead magnets are, and you've probably seen so many of them littered across your social media, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. People telling you to give them your email in exchange for some sort of a document that teaches you how to solve a particular problem or address a pain point. Now, while I think this is sort of creating a product based on your intellectual property, I don't think that this is quite exactly what Daniel Priestley was speaking about. You see, money and value are intrinsically tied, and in a way, we actually appreciate the things that we pay for more than we appreciate free resources. Even if you're someone that's tried actually using something like a lead magnet in the past and you haven't got as much success, think about whether it's actually worth adding some sort of a price and increasing the value of that lead magnet. So what Daniel Priestley says in the book is something along the lines of stop selling your time and start selling your value. Before I started to write this book, I considered both of those things. I don't want to give away another shitty free resource or a PDF that's really just an email capture in disguise. I also wanted to make sure that this product that I would produce is actually of value, and ultimately it works as an asset that I always have in my business. Another one of my motivations, which Daniel doesn't really talk about in the book, but is one that was very personal to me, was I actually felt like I didn't have the best systems in my consulting business. A lot of the things that we were doing were really informal, and I felt like if I committed to this project of writing a book and productizing all of the IP that I had, it would actually force me to go and systemize everything. Now, if you're someone that's running a consulting business or wants to run a consulting business because you have some form of expertise, I highly recommend that you think about how invaluable it would be to start a project where you actually put together all of the knowledge that you have and you create systems around this knowledge and you package it all up in one single product. Another major benefit of doing something like this is it allows you to actually give names to your systems. So once I started to write our Google Ads system that had been so successful, I realized there was so much valuable information in this system that made this ad system totally different to an ad system you might use in another industry. I ended up naming this the Case Ready Ad System. Immediately, just from the title, it conveys to my target audience that this ad system is made for them, exclusively for them, and solves their problems, no one else's. So these 2 points, publish and product, were enough to convince me to start working on this book and start shifting my perspective from trying to sell my time to now trying to create and sell my value. The third and last point that I gathered from this book is one that ties really well with the bestseller aspect of this book. I'm a big believer in the idea that if you're doing something, you're putting your heart and soul into it, you're giving it all of your time, effort, and energy, that you should promote the absolute shit out of that thing. There is no reason why you should spend so much time sinking your creative energy into something and being somewhat shy and scared when it comes time to actually sharing it with everyone. So the third and final point that I gathered from his book was profile. With this particular point in the book, he talks about how you can leverage media, speaking, and social proof to build authority. He also has this very interesting point in the book where he talks about when people Google you, what exactly do they see? Is it just a whole bunch of random links that direct you to some old stuff that you forgot to remove from the internet? Do you have a Google Knowledge panel? Do you have a YouTube channel? Do your social media sites come up? Perhaps does your website show up? Maybe it's your LinkedIn. These are things that you have to take very, very seriously, because let's face it, whenever we have an interaction with any key person of influence in our life, one of the first things that we tend to do is to Google them. This idea came into my head. If I'm going to write this book, if I'm going to sink 5 to 6 months in preparing and publishing this book, I want to make sure that it is absolutely everywhere. Now, part of my strategy for getting this authority right off the bat was I researched exactly how I could make sure that my book went to bestseller status in my category. I became obsessed with making sure that this book launch went well. I would say I was probably so obsessed with the promotion of the book that it actually ended up being a little bit of a detriment to me because it sidetracked me from actually completing the book. Those that were super close to me knew that in the last couple of months, it was a real stretch for me to go and finish the book because all I was focused on was ensuring that this book was as successful as possible. Now, when I talk about success, it wasn't even monetary success. I just wanted to know that I could get this book out to as many law firm owners as physically possible all across the world. Not only did I research how to make it a bestseller, I reached out to media publications. I did interviews. This is actually when I came across the platform School, and I realized instead of just selling this book the way that every single person does, perhaps as an ebook and also on Amazon, why don't I actually create and build a community off the back of this book? Because that's something that's going to compound. Every single download, every single sale I have of the book, they'll be required to actually join my community to then access the online version of the book. I also included bonuses, resources. This is when I really let my creativity loose. Now, off the back of that, I have 1,000+ members in a School community, and every single day it compounds. In hindsight, after publishing this book, I feel so grateful that I've now developed an asset mindset. I now have learned the lesson that high leverage activities even though they're tough for the first few months and you don't produce as much revenue, will always perform far better than when you are directly selling your time. And if you're still on the fence about leveraging this same strategy for your online consulting business, I just want to leave you with this one idea that Daniel Priestley says in his book. You're either a key person of influence or you're working for one. Industries, it doesn't matter which industry, they all revolve around influential people. People who are paid, respected, and ultimately end up capturing 80 to 90% of the market that you're fighting for. So it's really up to you if you want to work for a key person of influence or actually take the effort to become one yourself.